Hi everybody. Happy Thursday. I'm Pia from I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps, and this is Lunchtime Live. This is episode 76, and for those of you who are new here, Lunchtime Live is basically like my video newsletter. I'm going to tell you all the stuff that's going on at Stitches and Scraps, what I'm working on, what's coming up, all of that. And then we end each episode with a demo. Now for 2022, I've decided to do a Stitch of the Week demo. So I'm doing like a different knit stitch or a different crochet stitch every week, and we're alternating. So this week's demo is going to be the broken rib stitch. I know you can't see that with the glare, but broken rib stitch. And we'll take a much closer look at that at the end of the episode. But first, let me tell you what else is going on at Stitches and Scraps. Now, as I talk about things, if you want to see the links that I'm talking about, if you look in the description on this video, you'll see a link to a blog post. That blog post has a whole list of everything I plan to talk about, and you can have all the links and everything there. So if I say something you want to check out more, you can just head on over to that post and you'll find the link there. Good morning, Beth. How are you? It's good to see you. So before we get started, actually, I want to show you this scarf. This is an old one, but I just pulled it out because I felt like wearing a scarf today. I don't know. The shirt felt kind of plain without it. But this is called Edison Park. And I did pop the link into that blog post. This is Edison Park, which is an asymmetrical knit scarf. And what I love about this one, it's the tiniest little feature, but I love it. Right at the point in the center, I made a little loop, okay? And that loop is for hanging or attaching a pendant. Well, if you're careful not to hack apart the yarn when you do it, I like to attach a random stitch marker because it's cute. It acts as a pendant, and then I have a stitch marker handy. So this is a great conference scarf or shawl because, stitch marker storage. Anyway, the link for that is in the blog post that I mentioned. So I live near Chicago, right? I'm not from Chicago. I hate saying I'm from Chicago because I live just far enough outside of Chicago that I'm definitely not from Chicago. A lot of people who live where I am spend a lot more time in the city than I do, but I grew up, in the suburbs, and we just didn't go to the big bad city unless relatives came to visit and we were taking them sightseeing. So I know Chicago like a tourist, but I lived here all my life. So I started, and I met my husband. He lived in Chicago for a while. He didn't grow up there. He grew up in the suburbs too, but he lived in Chicago for a while. And he keeps telling me about all these different neighborhoods and all the different things there are to explore. So I did a little, I want to say almost internet tourism, kind of looked up some of the different neighborhoods and some of the cool stuff out there. And it prompted me to start naming my patterns, because you guys, naming patterns is literally the hardest thing you will ever do as a designer. Coming up with a different name for every one of these patterns that is interesting and not lame is really ridiculously hard. So otherwise you get a lot of, blue sweater. But so I decided I was going to start naming a series of patterns after different neighborhoods in Chicago. And that sent me down this total rabbit hole of trying to find the perfect neighborhood to fit the pattern that I was trying to name. So yeah, this one ended up being, what did I say this one was? This one was Edison Park. But the one this is the knit version of an asymmetrical shawl or scarf that I crocheted first, which was called Norwood Park, which is another neighborhood in Chicago. So yeah, just a little story behind the names here. I've got a whole series of them, and I keep meaning to do an ebook at some point, but I keep meaning to do a lot of things and I never get to, but it's on the list. Okay, so back to actual reality now. The stuff that's been going on at Stitches and Scraps, I have a new pattern and a tutorial to go with it, 2 separate posts. This is the pattern. I'm not putting it on because my hair is not cooperating today, and it'll be if I do. But this is the Sweethearts ear warmer. Okay, this is a double knit pattern. So it's got the opposite design, you know, the reverse design on the other side, so you can wear it either way. And it has this little single color garter stitch section in the back. I'm gonna actually switch cameras here so you can see this much closer. Here we go. So this part is really thick and cushy. It's 2 layers of fabric, right? This part is just 1 layer of fabric, and it's really thin compared to the rest of it and super stretchy. So this gives it a really good fit. And right here, this set of rows here, you can add or subtract rows as needed to get the fit you want. So you can add or subtract like a couple inches here. So you could do it like that, would be about the tightest you could go. Which is all you really need for most adult size heads. Now I do plan, again, this is on my list of millions of things. It may actually not come out until next Valentine's Day, because I don't think I can get it out in time for this Valentine's Day. But I do plan to do a child size version of this, which won't have the center heart and may just have fewer hearts across the front, so that I have more room to play here to adjust the size, because this one didn't leave me a lot of room to play because I couldn't edit, you know, this part. So I may do a child size version, possibly with 2 versions, depending on how small I go. Like I may do a baby size and a child size, one with more hearts, one with fewer. But that's something in the works. May not come out till next Valentine's Day, because I don't see it happening in the next week. And then after that, who wants the heart patterns after Valentine's Day, right? Well, anyway, this one's up, and it has a full video tutorial with it, 45 minutes, but I broke it down and I've got the timestamps in the post, so you can go to just the section you're having trouble with if you have questions on it. That's the new pattern. So what else is going on in the blog? Well, I have, you know, the bag along is going on. That started in January. We're still on the first bag, and I've got another tutorial coming out, I want to say next week, for the folding and the seaming. So this, to remind you, or for those of you who are new, this is the origami, felted origami bag, which is this 2 months period project for the bag along. And the tutorial that was already posted last week was for surface crochet over the color changes. Next tutorial's coming out for how to actually fold and assemble the bag and attach the handle and all of that. So look for that next week. I also have a pattern coming out next week for the Cozy at Home crochet along, which is over on CAL Central. If you go to Facebook, just look up CAL Central and you'll find the group there. And I think I'm going to do a pillow. I have some chunky yarn that I've been wanting to do something with, and I think it would work up as a really great, like, small toss pillow. I just don't know if I have enough yardage. So I'm going to try that, and if it doesn't work with a chunky yarn, I'll probably do it in a worsted weight. But that should be coming out on Monday. I'm a little behind, but yes, I will get that done by Monday. And that's what I've got for next week. So let's jump right into the demo. I'm going to show you how to do this broken rib stitch. Let me find the right side. Okay, so this is what it looks like, right side up and bottom to top. Okay, I have gone ahead and cast on 12 stitches, and the first row for broken rib, and actually every odd numbered row for broken rib, is going to be knit every stitch. So I knit every stitch for the first row, because you don't need to see me do that. And now I'm turning it around and I'm starting row 2. Okay, so the first row is just knit every stitch. Now row 2, we're going to do basically a ribbing, right? We're going to knit, purl, knit, purl. So I'm knitting, and then I purl. Okay, very easy, knit, purl, knit, purl. It's always hard on the table because the ends of the needles want to hit the table. Okay. And if I do circulars, the cord gets in the way. I might try using double points next time for a demo because they're shorter. Oop. Okay, now I wanted to show you something about the end stitches. In the blog post I wrote what to do for an odd number of stitches. If we had 11 stitches, you can see I started with a knit and I finished with a knit. Okay, that's nice and easy. It's knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, and then you got one extra knit at the end, right? When you have an even number of stitches, you think, okay, I'm just going to purl that one. I'm going to do this for a few rows, and then I'm going to show you why you probably don't want to do that, or rather when you don't want to do that. So I'm just going to leave it for now, but I'm going to come back and tell you why I don't like that. Okay, so now you can see that you've got columns sort of forming, right? And if we zoom in, you'll see that this column looks like knit stitches all the way, and this column's alternating knit and purl, okay? Well, this is stockinette, right? When it looks like knit stitches on the front, that's stockinette, and when it looks like it's alternating, that is garter stitch, right? So broken rib is basically a ribbing that is interrupted by garter stitch. So what is garter stitch? Garter stitch is knit every row, right? So the front side row, row 3, row 1, row 3, all the odd numbered rows, is where we're interrupting our ribbing by doing just garter stitch, which is knit every row. So that is the broken part of the broken rib. We're breaking our ribbing with a row of garter stitch. Okay. And then on the wrong side row, we're doing our ribbing again. So we're going to start with knit. I'm just going to do this one more row, and then we'll look at the swatches. So knit, purl, knit, purl all the way across. I just want one more row so I can show you the end. That's why I'm doing these two. So if you look at this horizontally in rows, you say that you have a row of ribbing on the wrong side row and a row of garter stitch on the right side row, right? Because the right side row is knit every row, which is garter stitch, and the wrong side row is alternating knits and purls, which is ribbing. Okay, so that's one way to look at it. Another helpful way to look at it is in columns. So you have columns of stockinette stitch, right? This column is stockinette stitch, and this column is garter stitch, alternating knit and purl. So if you look at it in columns, you can do more with it. I'm going to tell you some examples. Okay, but I want to show you this edge. Look at this edge, how nice and neat it is, right? This is a garter stitch selvage because here's the stockinette and here's a row of, or a column of garter stitch. Garter stitch makes a very nice, neat edge. Here we have, you know, because we have an odd number, it's garter, stockinette, garter, stockinette, garter, stockinette, garter, stockinette, garter, stockinette, garter, stockinette. Stockinette does not make a very pretty edge if you just do it normally because it gets floppy. There's just too much fabric there. So one of the ways you avoid a floppy edge is by doing garter. If you were to do this on this even number of stitches and you end with that stockinette edge, it's just not going to look that pretty. Now, if this is in the middle of a pattern and you have other stitches around it, great, no problem. Go ahead and do, you know, this purl, you know, in pattern like you're doing. But if you do this as a standalone piece, like this is a standalone piece, and this is an odd number of stitches so that I could have this garter edge on both sides. So that's a consideration you want to take into account. You can also do a slip stitch edge just like you would do a slip stitch selvage normally. If you do have this odd number and you wanted it to look neater, sorry, this even number, and you wanted it to look neater, then when you get to the last stitch on the wrong side, instead of purling it like we've been doing, just go ahead and knit it like, you know what I mean? Like the pattern says to purl, but just go ahead and knit it, and what you'll end up with is 2 stitches of garter stitch at the edge, which will look just fine. So those are some options with that. Now let's look at other things you can do, because this is broken rib. Like if somebody just tells you knit broken rib, this is broken rib, okay? But obviously you can play with it, right? The idea of broken rib is you've got these columns of stockinette alternating with columns of garter. You could do 1 column of stockinette and 3 columns of garter, or 3 columns of stockinette and 1 column of garter, or a 2-2 rib, whatever you want to do. What sets the ribbing pattern up is the wrong side row. So the right side row is always just knit every row, right? Or knit every stitch. So we're going to just knit every stitch. Okay. Now on the wrong side row, we get to decide where the columns of garter are going to be. So we can do knit 3. No, you know what? I want to do purls. Okay, so the thing to remember, I'm going to knit the first stitch. Okay, the thing to remember is you're on the wrong side row. So if you want 3 rows of stockinette on the front, you're going to have to purl them here. The ones that you purl are going to look like stockinette on the front. So I'm knitting the first one to keep my nice garter stitch edge. Then I'm going to purl 3 and knit 1. Then I'm going to purl 3 and knit 1. Now I got 3 left. I'm going to purl 2 of them, and then I'm going to knit the last stitch just to keep that garter stitch edge going. Okay. And let me knit 1 more row so you can see how this pattern looks when we do this. I would call this a broken 3-1 rib if I was writing it up, because it's a 3-1 rib broken up by this garter stitch row. Okay, so now you can see, and I've only done just this little bit, but you can see those 3 stitches of stockinette, those 3 rows of stockinette, and then the 1 row of garter in between. It's a much flatter ribbing, just like any 3-1 ribbing would be. But you can do anything you can do with ribbing, any like style of ribbing you can do. You want to do 2-2, 3-1, 3-3, whatever you want to do, you can do that with the broken rib. The broken part is you knit every stitch on the front. The ribbing design comes in on the back, where you purl the stitches that you want to be stockinette and you knit the stitches that you want to be garter. This is what it looks like from the back. This is that 1-1, and then this is the 3-1. And that's pretty much all I have. And then the other consideration too is you want to look at what you're doing with the edges to make sure you keep them nice and neat. And that is everything that I have for you on broken rib stitch. If anybody has any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to say happy Thursday, have a great weekend, and hopefully I will see you all next week. Bye.